Hi, welcome to Not Hate Speech Show. I'm your host, John.
And I'm your host, Dylan. And today we're going to be talking about the upcoming Fauci files that Elon Musk has promised us.
Ooh,
So they haven't come out just yet, and the Twitter files thus far have been very scathing, to say the
yeah.
least. And Elon's not a Fauci fan. He's
For the
not,
people that choose to even listen to him, some people you talk about the files, the media is ignoring them.
yeah,
And it's literally evidence and facts, but people don't care. Pretty
yeah,
wild. I mean, luckily, what we've done for the past longest time with COVID is getting people used to only getting their information from a media source, a television, which doesn't have to be correct.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are just going to go to what's the easiest option, and a lot of these well-established like legacy news networks are going to do what they do and provide that easy way to get that information. However, in modern times, a lot of people are looking to get their news information elsewhere, like independent YouTubers such as us, um, or Timcast, or The Quartering, or multiple other people that operate on
And
different platforms.
Canvas is good.
Oh yeah, Candace is great, and I
I love
loved
her
her
new keeper.
documentary.
That was
What's
great.
that?
Also, I always want to call him Fauci or Fauci, or I have a hard time with his name.
Did Fauci give your mouth the ouchie trying to pronounce it?
Fauci, ouchie. Oh, that's it. That's how you remember,
Yup.
because he forces things on you.
Oh boy.
um, yeah, and so also I think if you really wanted to summarize him as a person, one of his most famous quotes, was along the lines of like, "I am the science," pretty much.
Oh
You know,
God.
I forgot the exact phrasing of it, but essentially it was like, that he sees himself as like the emperor, like in Star Wars, "I am the Senate."
Well, the thing is, like the last year of Trump's presidency, Trump basically gave him the keys, and basically Fauci was running the country at that point.
In a lot of those aspects, and then
Yeah.
it only got even worse, I think, whenever, because what was kind of a lot of the Democrat areas were already kind of going a little overboard with some of the restrictions, and then it just got even worse when Biden took over. He started doing even more restrictions at a federal level,
Yep.
which we didn't have previously with Trump, which was one difference I kind of liked Trump over, was that he wasn't doing those federal restrictions that Biden did, that would be the way that you introduce fascism. A lot of people said, "Oh, Trump's a fascist." Okay, well, forcing people to do things at a federal level is how you would establish fascism.
Yeah,
There's
that's
no other way
true.
to do it.
And the thing is that
Uh,
like a lot of the policies that Biden implemented did devastation to a lot of people's businesses and how they operated and were able to actually like survive.
yeah, and especially in the Democrat areas, that was also insane. I mean, what we saw, and I'll probably do at some point kind of like a little COVID fact episode of all the truth that happened during COVID that was for the most part suppressed because people wanted to share essentially conspiracy theories on mainstream media. They were talking at the beginning of the pandemic that there was going to be like 40% mortality rate with COVID. That never happened. We had
Yep.
the emergency hospitals that were supposedly needed because they'd be overwhelmed. We have to shut down everything. That they closed them immediately. Every emergency hospital they opened, New York, Chicago, LA, they closed them immediately. They were empty. No one needed them. But we still played the game, so that was fun.
Well, I do know that
We're
during the
still
pandemic.
playing. Some people are
Yeah.
still playing.
Well, I
Look
know.
at
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say I know California is trying to get back to their mask mandates and stuff, and I was just gonna mention like a lot of the COVID, like a lot of people have conspiracy theories about it, but like just think of it with Twitter, like all the conspiracy theories that like everyone was thinking turned out to be true.
Right. Oh yeah. When you're referring to people looking at the data, I mean, I knew, okay, for the longest time when they were talking about 40% mortality rate, 20% mortality rate, saying that COVID's going to kill all these people, I knew from the whole time looking at the source studies that we were getting our data from hospitals strictly. So they were saying, okay, 10 people go into a hospital for COVID. Two of those people die, let's say. We now say that's the mortality rate. but that's not accurate because we're not
Sure.
talking about people who are asymptomatic or who don't have symptoms that would require a hospital visit,
Yeah.
which we already knew. I think it was even like a month after the pandemic, people were saying it's probably close to 90% that don't need hospitalization, meaning that now you're looking at the 10% worst cases, and then from there deciding mortality rate, which is hyperinflated.
Yeah. And then
That
not
was
only,
easy.
yeah,
That was easy to figure out. It wasn't a conspiracy theory. That's basic science. That's basic math. It's basic statistics. And somehow, geniuses like Mr. Fauci, I don't care, couldn't figure it out. I should have given me the money you gave him because I figured it out way before science did. Because now science agrees, by the way.
well,
Science,
yeah, well, I mean,
mortality
also,
rates don't make any sense.
true. And the thing is, like, actually, if you consider the statistics during COVID, even like if you had COVID or recently was
Yeah.
diagnosed with it and you passed away for something else, like cancer or an accident, it would still count as a COVID death. Much of like, technically, according to CDC standards, George Floyd died of COVID. So, I
Right.
mean, and like, obviously, he didn't die of COVID. So, but he's
Right.
still marketed as
It didn't matter. They caught a gunshot death. They caught an accident. With George Floyd's case, he died of, the fentanyl.
Mhm.
That's why he died. But he had a COVID positive result when he died. So according to CDC standards, that was a COVID death.
Yep.
And that's how they were marking it with people. And when people got caught doing it, they would make, because I was actually talking with someone debating this morning about this very topic, and they reflected on, well, the person in charge of it said that they're going to start watching it and taking care of it. Okay, well, they got caught. They got caught inflating numbers. They were getting a kickback of money every time they had a COVID case and a COVID death. They knew what they were doing. If you're a hospital struggling for money, struggling for workers, and you can make every single one of your clients like a bonus amount of money,
Yeah.
you're going to do it.
I think there's
I'm
an
not saying
incentive.
I support that, but I'm just saying that's human nature.
Yeah, I think actually hospitals actually had an incentive for every person that passed away in their establishment or whatever. Like, it was $13,000 something.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact amount, but it was of that nature, and it was crazy. And the thing is that's not science.
Yeah.
Money does not change hands to reach scientific results. You need to fund things, but that's not the same thing. There's also called buying off scientists, buying off hospitals, buying off nurses. And then the part that got even worse, because that I kind of expect, and I hope that we have enough honest people that we don't have a problem with that. But where it got worse was that then if a doctor or a nurse ever said something wrong's going on here, they're getting trouble. They get fired, they get laid off, they get articles calling them a psycho, conspiracy theorist, crazy nut job. You weren't allowed, it's the same concept as canceling, but we put it into medicine and science. And how is that? Is that the world you want to live in, where woke culture decides what your doctor does?
Apparently
I don't want that. I want the doctor to actually look at me and use science and use reason, not whatever's popular in the media.
Yeah,
that's not how I want my medicine.
Well, I mean, that's perfectly fair, but when the big pharma is making a huge amount of money based on the vaccines, which weren't really accurately tested, like there was never a successful COVID vaccine prior to the pandemic. So
it's mRNA technology. mRNA technology is what the COVID vaccine in quotations was. Before the COVID vaccine, mRNA was never considered a vaccine. Vaccines were considered where you took a portion of the virus and you killed it and you made it in such a way that it could be, the body would recognize it and be able to fight the infection without being sick and die. That was always what we called a vaccine. Now we have something called mRNA technology, which now there's debates about exactly how it works. Among lay people, we can only kind of take the information we get given from people who understand it a little bit more. But essentially, it's therapy to change, from my understanding, how your body reacts to something, which could also be considered to be kind of like genetic manipulation. Obviously, that concept doesn't go over too well with some people, so it hasn't gotten very far, and it wasn't successful prior to the COVID vaccine. When the I'm sorry, the American Drug ADA, American Drug. Trying to remember who gives approval.
Isn't it
Who
the
gave approval?
CDC?
No, the CDC is the Center for Disease
Control.
Control. No, the FDA. FDA approval.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why I was thinking ADA. So the FDA, when they gave their approval, it was actually quite rushed. It was faster approval than was ever given for, like, the metrics for it were insane compared to anything else. It hadn't gone through testing for pregnant women, children, sensitive groups. So whenever you would see an article, like, people would be saying it's perfectly safe to get the new COVID vaccine, which was mRNA experimental therapy. It's perfectly safe to get that as a pregnant woman. That was based on nothing. Literally nothing. Literally nothing. So people who were getting it were being, and then nowadays they gaslight you. I had someone today telling me about, like, well, but the studies show it's safe for women. I'm like, you mean the studies of the fact that you tested on the American public without their really knowledge or consent?
Yeah.
Those studies.
And there was a few complications that I recall from it. I think you were at higher chance of, like, having a heart attack, like if you were older.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's
some
actually
other...
younger men. Younger men were having complications. 20s to 30s were getting a higher increase. And now, again, the games that are being played to just get simple information out of the media and out of the medical community regarding the COVID mRNA experimental injection, which I hate calling it a vaccine because it's really not by scientific standards.
Yeah.
It's just inappropriate language to call it a vaccine. It doesn't prevent spread.
Oh, that's
it's
true.
not a vaccine. Vaccines prevent spread. They actually eventually eliminate the virus. It doesn't do that. It's just changing how your body reacts, which is gene therapy or something of that nature. It really is pulling teeth to get honest information. The only thing we ever get from these people is the vaccine is safe and effective and a fact check. And it's like, but that's not true. There are complications that have been discovered, and the people really messed up is the people that had side effects like this. Medical professionals will often refuse to talk to them about it as if it was the vaccine that did it. They will say, like, no, vaccine's safe and effective. And they're like, hey, well, why do I have this? And they'll either tell them it's just anxiety, they don't have a problem. Then eventually they do find out and get medical proof that it was caused by a vaccine side effect. But there's so much denial and so much unethical behavior regarding the COVID injection that it's just really, it's messed up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, on that bombshell, we got to get going. So thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to hit that like button. Tells YouTube that you like what you see, and it makes us more widely available to share the information. And don't forget to press the subscribe button. Until next time, I'm your host, Dylan.
I'm your host, John. Bye.